Welcome to a CBS News Colorado special. Voters decide, the primary debate with the Republican candidates for Congressional District 4. I'm political reporter Sean Boyd, your moderator. The heavily Republican 4th Congressional District spans the Eastern Plains and includes Front Range communities of Loveland, Parker, and Douglas County. Let's meet the candidates. They are sitting in the order in which they appear on the ballot: Lauren Boebert, Richard Holtorf, Mike Lynch, Deborah Flora, Jerry Sonnenberg, and Peter Yu. So a few notes before we get started. Candidates did not get any of the questions in advance, and not every candidate will be asked every question since there are 6 of them. Answers will be limited to 1 minute. We do not have an audience, but the candidates were allowed to bring a limited number of guests. Let's get to opening statements. Congresswoman Boebert, you're up.
It is wonderful to be here tonight. I am Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, and I have proudly delivered for Colorado for many years now. It has been an honor to be in Washington, D.C., and being the voice of Colorado, making sure that we are not forgotten. Right now, our country is absolutely under attack. The failed Democrat policies that we are living under are hurting each and every one of us. Our families, our grocery bills are affected. When you go to a grocery store and spend over $300 and still can't make it to the end of the week, that's a problem. Inflation is hurting Coloradans. The immigration crisis at the southern border is hurting Coloradans, and I have been fighting on these issues every step of the way to limit the reckless spending, to reduce inflation, to get American energy development, and to secure our border. I don't just talk the talk, I deliver for Colorado, and it's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Holtorf.
Well, thank you, Colorado, and thank you, CBS 4, for the invitation to be here. I want Colorado citizens to know that I'm a veteran. Served 29 years in the United States Army, a retired colonel, War College graduate, and also I'm a combat veteran. And I think that service matters. I think 5 overseas tours matters. I think the fact that I've served my country selflessly all over the world matters. I also want people to know that I'm a 3rd-generation cattle rancher. I grew up in eastern Colorado, live on the cattle ranch that I grew up on as a 3rd-generation cattle rancher. And I live and work around people that are the salt of the earth. I get up at the crack of dawn and I go to bed oftentimes after the sun has long gone down. And I will give that kind of dedicated service to you as your congressman. I also want you to know I'm a no-nonsense conservative. I am a very tough, tenacious individual, and I don't back down from anything or anybody. And I've stood up for Colorado in the state capitol for 5 years as a Colorado whip, and I want to be your next congressman.
Thank you. Representative Lynch.
Thank you. Thank you, CBS 4. Mike Lynch. I am a husband, father, veteran, small business owner, and most recently the representative for House District 65. I represent a large portion of this district already. Over the last 4 years, I was somebody just like you at home that was frustrated and wanted to do something about what's going on in our government, and I did. Through that time, I've championed a lot of legislation through this state, taking on the issues of fentanyl, taking on the issues of immigration, actually, in this state as well. And I would be honored to stand and fight for you. We're sick of politicians in CD4 that can't stand and fight. I'm a West Point graduate. I have been the minority leader, and I can't wait to be your congressman. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Flora.
I'm Deborah Flora. I grew up here on Lowry Air Force Base and graduated from high school in Colorado just as our 2 children did. I have deep roots fighting alongside our neighbors here in CD4 as a parent and school choice advocate, a radio show host, and a director of public policy. I have stood from the school board to the State House, and now I'm ready to stand for all of us in Congress. Voters face a clear choice. We've seen how Lauren Boebert would represent us, abandoning her neighbors in CD3, missing key votes while chasing cameras, and being in the center of DC drama instead of delivering real solutions for the people. I'm running because we deserve a better choice. I'm the conservative fighter that you can be proud of that will focus on solutions to securing our border and revitalizing our economy. You get to decide between more dysfunction and division or new principled leadership that will unite us and get our economy back on track? I'm asking for your vote. Thank you, and God bless you.
Senator Sonnenberg.
Well, thank you and good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you. I am Jerry Sonnenberg, fourth-generation farmer and rancher in northeastern Colorado on our farm that's been in the family for over 100 years. I've raised my family there. I actually live in the same house that both my father and I were raised in. I've raised my children there. I served in the legislature, both in the House and the Senate, and was President Pro Tem of the Colorado Senate the last time we could stop the liberal agenda, the last time Colorado had Republicans in charge of anything. My experience and the leadership skills I've developed are key to electing and having a congressman that will serve you well in this district. I love this district. I've lived here. I've raised my family here. I want to be your congressman and look forward to serving you in Washington, D.C.
Mr. Yu.
Thank you so much. I am so honored to be here. It's become well documented that I spend about 8 hours a day walking and canvassing our neighborhoods, knocking about 500 doors a day. And so I want to relay an experience I had just last week. I got invited into a nice couple's home. The wife was disabled, the husband's a veteran. She's a registered Democrat, he's a registered Republican. Not anymore. They are now both unaffiliated voters. And the reason why is because they have absolutely zero faith in our Congress. They have zero trust in our current elected officials. And the reason why I'm telling you this story is because I hear this every single day. I hear this, that people are saying they're tired of the grandstanding, they're tired of the campaign promises and the bullet points of how they're gonna fix everything. While they're actually at home struggling. They're looking for true leadership. They're looking for true representation. And I'm just honored that I have the chance to be able to communicate with our public and be able to be that representative for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As part of our predetermined rules, candidates that are attacked get a 30-minute rebuttal. Congresswoman Boebert.
30-second.
As a United States representative, I understand the power in unity. I understand that our Republican principles work. This is what delivers Americans out of prosperity and into freedom. My job is to secure your liberties, to secure your rights. I have a proven track record. No one is going to argue my 100% conservative voting record. It's all there for you to see. I am delivering for Colorado with the Convey Act, with economic development, with creating jobs in Pueblo, Colorado. I may have a change of scenery in life, but our values here in Eastern Colorado remain the same, and that's what I'm going to fight for and deliver for each of you.
Let's begin with an issue that is important to all of us, water. Parts of Congressional District 4, such as right here in Douglas County, are growing rapidly. Growth requires water, and with increasing demands on the Colorado River, diverting water from the western slope is not a viable option. Congresswoman Boebert, the first question goes to you. Do you support urban areas like Douglas County trying to take water from rural areas like the San Luis Valley?
There are many things that we can do for our water. This is our most precious resource in Colorado and an issue that I work on daily. I serve on the House Natural Resources Committee and on the Water Subcommittee because this is so vital for us. I have delivered on water storage projects in Colorado, and I have fought to protect those rural areas where larger areas, suburban areas, want to take their water and in the beneficial use for our farmers and ranchers and our agriculture that is so vital to the state of Colorado. There are many things that we can do in Eastern Colorado. Much of this is private lands, but water storage needs to be at the top of the list. We send hundreds of billions of gallons downstream to California, and they later dump that into the ocean. There are better ways to secure our water, and one of the main things that we need to focus on is managing our forests. That's where the majority of our watershed comes from, and an unhealthy forest is an unhealthy watershed.
Thanks. Ms. Flora, a similar question to you. As a member of Congress, how would you ensure rural Colorado has access to water as well as growing urban areas in CD4?
Absolutely. We need to balance all parts. As I've been traveling all over this 21 county district, listening to voters, this is an important issue whether you are in Baca County, whether you're in Kit Carson County, or you're in Highlands Ranch. I would definitely focus on making sure that there is storage. That is essential. I would also make sure that other states in the compact do their part. If there is a drought, everyone needs to lower their levels. In addition, we cannot have nationwide states like California, who has not built a dam in 45 years, continue to expect more from Colorado. I will be standing up for the people of this district, from the Eastern Plains to the suburban regions, making sure that the vital resource of water is kept available to our farmers, our ranchers, and those who do live in the suburban areas.
Thank you. Representative Holtor, same question. How would you ensure both rural and urban areas have access to water?
Thank you for the question. And as a person that's involved in production agriculture and also represents the 7 counties of House District 63, where 75% of all production, agricultural production, comes from, I have a very acute understanding of the needs of water. Now, to get to the second part of that question, I don't believe in buy and dry, where municipalities buy land and the water rights and then they take that out of production. Most people don't know this, many of the panelists probably don't know this, but the country of Italy actually said they will not take any more agricultural land and allow it to be bought, that it's going to be preserved for agriculture because they understand the importance of feeding their population. I also have this importance. I was last week in the Republican River Water Conservation District meeting. We were talking about the Republican River. We're also the South Platte River. So I have a very good understanding of that. Now, what we need to do is have federal incentives that help communities and municipalities and citizens to conserve water. In all the households in the urban corridors, there's so much we can do. And I will bring forth that legislation. If I had more time to tell you about it, I would tell you more.
You're watching the debate with the candidates vying to represent Coloradans in the 4th Congressional District. We'll be right back. Welcome back to a CBS News Colorado special. Voters decide the primary debate with Republican candidates for Congressional District 4.
This one is for all of you. A quick yes or no on this. Is climate change real, and is it caused by humans?
Climate change occurs 4 times every year. It's absolutely real. There's many things that we can do to manage our environment. It depends on the context. If it's 4 times a year, absolutely, it's real.
Okay.
Thank you, Sean. You said yes or no. So I'm going to start with yes, climate does change.
And humans are causing it?
So there is a contribution
Okay.
through industry, but there's a larger contribution through environmental factors that we do not control.
Representative Lynch.
Thank you, Sean. Yes, it is real, and humans have very little impact on it, changing it one way or the other.
Ms. Flora.
There is a history of climate change throughout the history of the Earth, but it is driven more predominantly by factors outside human exports or what we produce. And I think what is important, we all want to fight for our environment.
Thank you.
You got it.
Sonnenberg.
Indeed, we've had climate change since the Ice Age. We've had climate change our entire earthly history. And quite frankly, we have right now the cleanest water and cleanest air that we've ever had over the last 100 years.
Humans? Senator Sonnenberg.
And I apologize, I'm actually having a hard time hearing anything you're saying.
I'm
asking you if you're talking about climate change, is that correct? Is it real? Okay, so.
Is it real, and do humans contribute? Are humans the cause of it?
Okay, what's the second part of that question?
Are humans the cause of it?
Oh, are humans
we
the cause?
causing?
Okay.
Not really a yes or no.
So, as everyone has said, climate change is something that's been happening for the 4.5 billion years of our history. There's been 5 ice ages. We're actually living in an ice age. And right now, obviously, the climate does go up and down. Now, when you sit there and talk about our atmospheric combination or 0.004 of that is CO2. Man is responsible for 11% of that. And so there is a contribution there, obviously, as that is accelerated.
Okay. Mr. Yu, wind energy is a big economic driver in the fourth CD, and former President Trump wants to end wind subsidies. Do you agree with that?
I am so sorry, Sean. I'm just having such a hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry, I'll speak up. So wind energy is a big economic driver in CD4. Former President Trump, if reelected, would like to end subsidies for wind. Do you agree with that?
So if I hear the question correctly about energy and do I support Donald Trump? So as someone who's actually spent many years working in the energy sector, I have a strong support for oil and gas in the state of Colorado. It's a big part of our economic driver. The taxes basically help pay us for roads and schools. In regards to subsidies, in regards to that, I absolutely do support that in regards to making sure that we do explore all opportunities. But people also need to understand that the amount of subsidies that we send towards oil and gas is only a third of what we send towards renewable energies. So it actually does go all the way around.
Okay. Senator Sonnenberg, same question. Do you support wind subsidies?
You know, when I served in the Senate, I had more wind turbines in my Senate district than the rest of the state combined. I'm an all-of-the-above guy. I want all of the options available for our energy production. That includes coal, that includes natural gas, hydro, nuclear. All of those options should be on the plate so we can have a reduced cost for our energy. Do I support subsidies for those? Absolutely not. I think they all ought to compete on the level playing field.
So, Representative Lynch, I want to follow up on what Senator Sonnenberg said here. Should any form of energy receive tax breaks? In other words, should there be winners and losers?
That's not the role of the government, to create winners and losers. And when it comes to these subsidies, that doesn't do any good. If it makes economic sense, and I do believe we do need to have a combination of energy sources out there, but only if the free market really is asking for those.
Congresswoman Boebert, same question. Should any form of energy receive tax breaks?
I don't believe that the federal government should be choosing winners and losers with these subsidies. We need to unleash our energy production here in America. That is how we begin to combat inflation that is harming Americans. And with the Green New Deal subsidies, you are all paying for that. Hundreds of billions of dollars that have been taken from you to subsidize this Green New Deal is not the proper role of the federal government, and it is not something that I agree with. Look, in CD4, all throughout Colorado, communities have been regulated into poverty by failed policies from Democrat politicians who want to put their thumb on the scale and choose the winners and losers in this industry. And that is something that I work against on a regular basis. I have passed bills out of the House to unleash our American energy development. And just recently in the House Natural Resources Committee, my hydro bill received a hearing, and we will be moving forward on that as well.
Thank you.
You're watching the debate with the candidates vying to represent Coloradans in the 4th Congressional District. We'll be right back. Welcome back to a CBS News Colorado special. Voters decide the primary debate with Republican candidates for Congressional District 4.
Congress is negotiating a new 5-year farm bill right now. The House Ag Committee passed a bill that closes a loophole in the 2018 law, which allowed for intoxicating hemp-derived products like Delta-8 THC. Senator Sonnenberg, do you support closing this loophole, which would be a huge blow to hemp farmers?
And I'm not sure, Sean, if you could tell me, honestly, the echo in here, I have a hard time hearing you. What is the loophole that they closed?
It is one that allowed intoxicating hemp-derived products like Delta-8 THC.
We should not be allowing intoxicating hemp products or those that actually fall into that marijuana category to be subsidized in the Farm Bill. There are proper roles for hemp, and we have a lot of opportunities, whether it's biofuels, those type of things that should be included in the Farm Bill, quite frankly, and work to expand those markets as well.
Representative Holtor, same question. Should Congress close this loophole that exists right now that is allowed for a proliferation of hemp farms, but also intoxicating hemp?
Sean, your listeners don't know this, but I'm in production agriculture. I run a 800-acre dryland farm, and I've actually raised hemp. I'm the only candidate up here that's actually planted the crop and knows about this. So the answer is absolutely we should not allow for what they call hot hemp to be produced because this Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 10 now they have can be synthesized, crystallized, and can be distributed as a hallucinogenic. So absolutely, I support closing this loophole because we don't need to intoxicate more youth in this country through this psychological, psychedelic drug culture that some communities embrace.
Colorado has 43 rural hospitals, 15 on the Eastern Plains, and half of the 43 are in the red. CEOs say they can't get loans because banks see them as risks. Ms. Flora, should the federal government help, and if so, how?
One of the key things that I'll be bringing to Washington, D.C. is an understanding of the correct role of government. When it comes to infrastructure such as roads or our hospitals, that is an appropriate role, particularly in the rural communities where they are suffering. One of the things that I'm also concerned about, however, on this issue is the overwhelming of our infrastructure of illegal aliens that are pouring into our state. I've spoken to so many leaders around this area, this district, this wonderful area we call CD4, and they are concerned because right now buses are being dropped off, overwhelming the hospitals that really are there to serve the good people in the rural communities. We need to address this from every issue, but it's time that we begin to put our U.S. citizens, those who are in the rural communities, first. And when it comes to this sort of thing, that is a proper role of government to support these hospitals and to make sure that we are doing the work of the people and the citizens.
Thank you. Mr. Yu, same question. Should the federal government help rural hospitals financially? And if so, how?
I absolutely do believe that the rural hospitals in our communities definitely need to be supported by a federal government. The healthcare system, as well as even the access to healthcare in these locations, are very minimal, and it would destroy communities if they did not have those healthcares. When I sit there and hear about how far veterans have to go or how far patients have to go to get to their healthcare, it's heartbreaking, and it's a devastation to our community. When you sit there and say, how can we actually make sure we help funding in those regards to those, we have to look at, in regard to maybe even adding that into our infrastructure bills in regards to just making sure that our hospitals are supplied as well as supported in those communities.
Thank you. Representative Lynch, Colorado has a prescription drug affordability review board which caps the prices of expensive drugs. Should the federal government have a similar program board?
You know, we're just seeing how this is working in Colorado right now, so it is, kind of remains to be seen. Drug industry has really put a hamstring on the health and safety of our citizens. So there's a bit of a role there, but I'm not in support of the government stepping in and stepping on the free marketability of that. But if we see an opportunity where somebody needs to be regulated because they're abusing our citizens, by all means, there's a role there.
You're watching the debate with the candidates vying to represent Coloradans in the 4th Congressional District. We'll be right back. Welcome back to a CBS News Colorado special. Voters decide the primary debate with Republican candidates for Congressional District 4.
The next few questions are specific to each individual candidate. We'll start with Congresswoman Boebert. You won by only 564 votes in the 3rd CD in 2022 with a 9-point Republican advantage. Unless you change your, some would call provocative, grandstanding style, why won't you be just as vulnerable if you win the nomination in the 4th CD?
Thank you for that question, Sean. So I am one of those who absolutely governs as I campaign. I walked into this role promising voters that I would deliver for them, and that's exactly what I've been doing. My first term, I was in the minority, and it's interesting, as much work as you can get done, there's still blowback being in the minority and not having those votes. But in my last election, we had 50,000 Republicans not turn out to vote. I was hearing a lot of folks who were upset with the 2020 election, not feeling like their votes mattered. There was a lot of apathy, saying this is a Republican district, everyone will be fine. And when 50,000 people do not show up and vote, then that's when we have these close races. So I encourage everyone to get out and vote. Your vote absolutely matters. And I'm going to continue to be an effective legislator for Colorado. I have passed more legislation out of the House than any other member in the Colorado delegation. You're not going to hear about that on the front page of the Denver Post, but I deliver for our infrastructure, our water needs, and for our rural communities.
Thank you. Representative Holtorf, you are also known as a bombastic legislator, which has resulted in criticism for making comments that have had some racial, even sexual overtones. Is this how you would serve in Congress as well?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that I'm a tough, no-nonsense conservative. And I stand up to the radical left, and I say oftentimes what needs to be said when people don't want to say it. I'm not a go-along-to-get-along legislator. Comments that I've made have been taken out of context with respect to who I was saying it to. When I'm talking to a fellow Hispanic from Eastern Texas, and I'm from Eastern Colorado, and I make comments directed at him, and other people want to take it and own it, it's not their comment to have. But the media did distort that. But I'm not going to back down from the radical left. You see, in Colorado, we have some of the most radical policy. You asked a previous question about should the federal government follow Colorado policy? I would say absolutely not. Colorado is not an example with the radical left policy that we have that the federal government should embrace. But I want to go back to this. I've stood up to the radical left, and I will stand up in Congress because I'm a warrior. I'm a fighter. You need to understand that. I've been to combat 2 times.
Thank you. Ms. Flora, you're from Douglas County and have spent your career as a conservative radio talk show host, but you don't have experience with issues like agriculture and water. How can you relate to rural parts of the district?
Thank you, Sean, for that question. Well, one of the things that I think we need in a representative is someone who actually has the humility and the respect to listen to people all over this wonderful and diverse 21 county district. It's very important, and I've been doing that. I've been proud to have put in over 15,000 miles on my car, over 250 events, listening to the voters. And here's what I can promise every single one of them. I will listen. When it comes time to pass an ag bill, I will be there having town halls and meetings. When it comes time to pass an energy bill, and by the way, I'm an all of the above energy person, I will listen to those important people that are out there in Weld County and beyond, making sure that we're representing them. But I will also represent those who are here in Douglas County. The reality is I have huge support here. I have the endorsement of our Douglas County Sheriff, mayors both in Parker and Lone Tree, all over this area. And this is 50% of the electorate. We have to hold this seat here. And if we don't, it would be the worst thing for everybody from Kit Carson County to Highlands Ranch.
Thank you. Representative Lynch, your campaign began with you having to resign as House Minority Leader because of a DUI that you had concealed from colleagues and constituents. How do you restore trust in your judgment after this?
Yeah, we all go through life and learn. I will tell you, nothing was ever hidden. That was public knowledge that could have been researched at any point. And it never affected any of my ability to do my job. That was an event that happened before I was even elected, not while I was in session. The news coverage on that made it sound like that is something that happened while we were in session or immediately in the past, and it wasn't. It probably never would have been an issue if I would not have announced for Congress.
Thank you, Senator Sonnenberg. You were considered a front runner in the race early on, but many believe you have run a weak campaign and have not gained the support of urban parts of the district. How do you address those concerns?
You know, it's a great question, Sean. I would say that I haven't ran a weak campaign. I won't go negative. And that's been a campaign issue with me and my staff, that I won't say anything negative about any of the other candidates. And quite frankly, I had part of my staff send out a mean tweet, and that person is no longer with my staff. With that said, even though Douglas County has not been able to vote for me, I have voted for them. When I was in the Senate, I served the entire state of Colorado, representing them, whether it's on State Affairs Committee, whether it's on water issues, whether it's making transportation funding a priority. All of those things, I voted on their behalf as a conservative in the legislature in the Colorado Senate, and I will continue to do that if I serve in Congress.
Thank you. Mr. Yu, you've run and lost in the 2nd CD and for U.S. Senate. Why do you think this race will be any different?
So it's been quite the journey by all means. And actually, it was those who actually encouraged me to stay involved. Running in one of the most Democrat seats in our state, as well as then running into a very populated U.S. Senate seat as well. But it was also about building a foundation for this race. Building a foundation for for a community that I'm actually part of. Grew up in Loveland, part of Northern Colorado my entire life. And the best part about that, in this 6-year run, I've actually, without any doubt, I spoke to more constituents than anyone else up here probably combined. That's the kind of candidate I am. That's the kind of representative I am. Where I'm not out there spending time talking to the establishment, I'm the one that's out there talking to the constituent on their front porch, having those conversations, taking every single call, and having those lunch meetings, regardless if they're Republican, Democrat, or an affiliate. And that's what we're looking for right now. We have a district that is changing demographically in so many ways, and that's the kind of representative we're going to need to hold this seat, not just today, but for 2, 4, 6 years down the road.
You're watching the debate with the candidates vying to represent Coloradans in the 4th Congressional District. We'll be right back. Welcome back to a CBS News Colorado special. Voters decide the primary debate with Republican candidates for Congressional District 4.
Let's turn now to immigration. Former President Trump says if reelected, he will designate drug cartels in Mexico as terrorist organizations, declare war on them, and use the military against them without the consent of Mexico's government, which is the largest trading partner of the U.S. Representative Holtorf, do you support Trump's plans? Why or why not? And if you do, what resources would you be willing to allocate for it?
Well, thank you for the question, because in January, I actually came up with this 5-point plan. Other candidates here embraced it and also took it back to Washington, D.C. and presented it to President Trump. I don't think people realize that. Let's talk about that very quickly. I'm the one that said that narco-terrorists are bringing fentanyl into this country and killing more people in the United States than were killed after 9/11. Number one. So absolutely, I support that. In fact, I would compliment and help the president build that plan as a retired colonel, a United States Army War College graduate, and a person that holds 3 degrees and my second master's degree in strategic studies. I would be the perfect person to work with the president to build this plan, creating a joint task force out of Northern Command, and using those military assets to augment Customs and Border Patrol and also ICE. You see, I have that tactical experience. I've actually been on the Afghan-Pakistan border running a joint border coordination center. So I understand the dangers of borders. And in that particular part of the world, heroin was going out and fighters, Taliban fighters and weaponry were coming in. So I understand this implicitly. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Flores, same
Do
question.
I get 30 seconds? I'm the only one who communicates with President Trump. I think that was a direct attack.
What's that?
Are there other candidates?
I wasn't talking to you. I didn't mention a question about you.
I didn't hear an attack on.
No, I wasn't an
for that
attack.
one.
I was talking about my policy, ma'am.
Ms. Flora, the same question. Do you support former President Trump's immigration plans? And if so, what resources would you allocate?
Thank you, Sean. I 100% do. When I was down at the border last year doing an extensive tour from El Paso, Texas to Demi, New Mexico to Columbus, New Mexico, I listened to Border Patrol, ICE, DEA. They talked about the 169 people on the terror watch list that were apprehended last September. It was 0 in 2019. That is a huge increase. I would definitely, and as I've outlined in a more extensive plan that we released this week, I would declare and help reclassify the drug cartels and narco-terrorist military organizations, but I wouldn't stop there. I would also secure the wall, and I would end the incentives of sanctuary cities like Denver that are luring desperate people here. You see, President Biden has exacerbated not just a national security disaster, but a humanitarian disaster. They deserve better, and also the citizens of this country deserve better. So I would 100% stand for that and make sure that our Border Patrol also has the ability to actually patrol, not just process.
Thank you. Representative Lynch, do you support funding to complete the wall along the southern border, and where specifically would that money come from?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, a lot of that money has already been spent. A lot of the supplies are already there, and that just needs to be picked back up, and I'm very confident that when President Trump wins, that he'll continue to do that. Also, kind of back to your other question, you know, we have been supporting the border mission for a number of years. When I was an active duty soldier in 4th ID, we were actually sending soldiers from Colorado to oversee border security, and that is an effective policy that I think we should continue to do.
Thank you. Congresswoman Boebert, do you support mass deportation? How would you accomplish that? Would you use the military, National Guard?
I think there are many ways that we can come up with a mass deportation plan, and I do support that. I have legislation that says build the wall, deport them all. We have over 10 million people who have broke our nation's laws and come into our country illegally, and you are all paying the price for that right now. We have hospitals that are on the verge of shutting down because of the amount of illegals who are going in and not paying their bills, the benefits that are going to illegal aliens, benefits that are better than what our veterans are receiving. This is absolutely un-American, and we need a process to get them out. Buses brought them in, buses can take them out. Currently, there are flights being flown from Central America to the interior of the United States to bring illegals in. That needs to stop immediately. Democrats have voted that down in the Senate, and we have got to reinstate President Trump's policies. This is why President Trump has endorsed me in this race, because he knows that I am strong on border security, and I will stand and fight with him every step of the way.
Thanks. The working age population in the U.S. is shrinking. Since the pandemic, all new job growth on net has been due to foreign-born workers. Senator Sonnenberg, given that, would you support a merit-based visa policy that would raise the caps on visas for immigrants skilled in high-need industries as a way of growing the working-age population?
Thank you for the question, and quite honestly, I would need to do a little more work on understanding what that would look like. But there indeed is a need for a workforce here in the United States, a legal workforce. And as we develop that legal workforce, we have to look at immigrant labor that come here legally. Agriculture is a big aspect of that. There are so many areas, quite frankly, that are important to our workforce that immigrants can fill those needs. I'm not sure exactly what that would look like, but we have to revamp how we do our immigration policy. And in order to do that, before we can revamp our immigration policy, we have to secure the border so we know who's here and who's not here, to be able to make sure that the people here are actually working and here being productive people in the United States.
Thank you. Mr. Yu, same question. Would you support a merit-based visa policy?
I would. Right now in America, we do have a population collapse where people are not having the will to work in these jobs. I've actually spoken to Colin, who owns a landscaping business up in northern Colorado. He spends thousands and thousands of dollars because he has a work shortage in his company, as no one's willing to work. And he basically spends thousands of dollars on visa applications. He basically takes forever for him to get here. He has to pay for their travel, has to pay for their housing. And as a result, he is actually having to now push those costs onto the people of the district, as well as his clients. And so I would definitely be in favor of increasing that with the merit base, as well as making sure we do have the employment here, but make sure we actually have a process that is done efficiently, quickly, and make sure it actually gets done in a process that makes people want to come here the right way, as opposed to just crossing the border.
Thank you. For this question, just a yes or no from each of you. Do you support ending birthright citizenship? Mr. Yu?
At this point in time, yes.
Senator Sonnenberg?
Yes.
Yes, going forward.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're watching the debate with the candidates vying to represent Coloradans in the 4th Congressional District. We'll be right back. Welcome back to a CBS News Colorado special. Voters decide the primary debate with Republican candidates for Congressional District 4.
Former President Trump says if reelected, he will reissue his 2020 executive order known as Schedule F. It would reclassify many civil service workers as political appointees. Schedule F is part of a plan by some conservative groups that is known as Project 2025. That would, among other things, dismantle the Department of Homeland Security, FBI, and EPA, and eliminate the Departments of Education and Commerce. Congresswoman Boebert, would you support these actions?
I absolutely support these actions. Schedule F was amazing. You know, one of the worst branches of government, the fourth branch of government that nobody really talks about, are the bureaucrats. We hear all the time about term limits. I know that's not a real branch. We hear about term limits for members of Congress, which I support, but it's the bureaucrats who are happy to either wait out a majority of their disliking or abuse the separation of powers, like we've seen with the ATF in creating the pistol brace rule, in making tens of thousands of Americans felons overnight for a piece of plastic being attached to their firearm. These are the people that we need to go after. In January of this past year, during the speaker's race, I fought to get back the Holman Rule, which allows us to target bureaucrats individually and reduce their salary down to $1. I think we need to go after these bureaucrats who abuse their power and hit them where it hurts. And I absolutely support Schedule F and eliminating agencies like the EPA and Department of Education and so many others.
Thank you. Representative Holtorf, same question. Would you support reclassifying civil service positions as political appointees and eliminate departments like the FBI, EPA?
The answer is, if President Trump wants to promote this, and I'm a big supporter of President Trump, I would support the president. Now, with respect to Schedule F, let me tell you where we need to start at the federal government. The SES, the senior executives. What needs to happen, in my humble opinion, and I have plans for this, is the House Oversight, Senate Oversight Committees need to review those SESs in those key departments, and there needs to be a schedule of their review. And if they are not following the Constitution, if they are not promulgating constitutional rules and policies, as that administrative state, it's called, administrative actions that affect every part of Americans' lives, then those people need to be asked to retire. And that can be done. There is legislative means that we can put together. And then when the top starts to come down, then everybody below that will get in line and say, maybe I better pay attention to the U.S. Constitution. Maybe I ought to follow the rules and follow the Constitution as we move forward. Thank you.
Former President Trump has also vowed, if reelected, to move a large chunk of the federal bureaucracy outside of Washington, D.C., similar to how he moved the Bureau of Land Management to Colorado. Senator Sonnenberg, do you support that, and why or why not?
Oh, absolutely. I would support moving a number of agencies outside of the D.C. swamp. Quite frankly, what Senator Gardner did by bringing that to the West Slope so they can interact with the people that are actually involved with federal lands is a brilliant idea, and we should look at all of those aspects of the federal agencies and put them where they are most closest to the people they affect, rather than in the swamp and inside that circle in Washington, D.C.
Thank you. Representative Lynch, same question. Do you support moving a large swath of federal government out of D.C.?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, these agencies that are responsible for us out here don't understand us out here. They're running from the inner bands of D.C. You know, we came really close to getting almost all the BLM out here, and we need to continue to do that, especially in those natural resource agencies. Those are so vital to our state. You know, the Forest Service has no business being on the mall in D.C. That's not where they can really do their best work, and so I think that makes a lot of sense. You know, logistically, are they going to really be able to get that done? You know, that's a big lift, and getting those people spread out would be great. But I think we should definitely go for that.
Thank you. If reelected, former President Trump plans to impose a 10% tariff on all foreign goods sold in America and a 60% tariff or more on Chinese imports. Mr. Yu, do you support this? Why or why not?
So this isn't a black and white question by any means, because I do believe that we have a trade deficit with China that does need to be addressed. However, those tariffs aren't tariffs that affect the Chinese government. This is tariffs that affect the American people. We are the ones that actually pay those tariffs. So is it really a benefit? And that's why it does have to be evaluated on how to basically narrow this trade deficit that we have with China. But at the same point, how does it really benefit American people by having us pay those extra taxes and those tariffs? So it would be a scenario where we would need to evaluate this continually. I like the idea of it, but at the same point, the American people are the ones that are paying for it.
Thank you. Ms. Flora, same question. Do you support these proposed tariffs?
In general, I'm a free market thinker, and I do believe that that is one of the things that benefits the citizens of this great district and this country most of all. Where I would want to focus is particularly on China, who's one of our #1 enemies, and we need to look first at the things that are exporting and importing that have a sensitive nature and could threaten our national security. But I do want to take a moment to answer the question about bureaucracies, because we were never intended as a country to be ruled over by unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats that put over-regulation on the backs of citizens with the force of law. I'm a small business owner with my husband. I understand what that over-regulation does. So I would work very hard to make sure that we begin to reduce the level of the bureaucratic state. I would start with things like the EPA, by the way, who've been proven to be unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, and definitely whittling the Department of Education down to almost nothing so that local control goes back to the citizens. Whether it's education or their businesses, the heavy hand of government has to be pulled back off of the great voters in CD4.
Thank you. Let's do a show of hands for these next few questions. Who supports overturning the 22nd Amendment so former President Trump could serve more than 2 terms? Show of hands? Nobody? Raise your hand if you think a sitting president can be charged with a federal crime.
What kind of question?
Do you think a president should be able to pardon himself? Who thinks presidents should be able to direct the Attorney General to bring criminal charges against individuals? Yeah.
Is that towards individuals?
To bring
President.
criminal charges, yes.
We have 3
President
branches.
would direct
We have
them
3
to.
branches of government. I think that's a violation of that.
Yes or no for these questions? Will you vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act, including the mandate on pre-existing conditions? Congresswoman Boebert?
Yes, I would vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act. That is not affordable. The promises that were made were not kept. People were not allowed to keep their doctors or their insurance plans, and it's been terrible for Americans.
Thank you. Representative Holter?
Yes, that Obama-era plan is a failed policy, and we need a new policy.
Representative Lynch?
Yes, I've seen the impacts of those attempts here in the state.
Ms. Flora?
Yes, the federal government should never take over that large of a portion of our economy or that impacts what should be between basically individuals and their doctors and the health care.
Senator Sonnenberg?
Yes, and we've seen our cost of health care simply because of it.
Mr. Yu?
What was the full question? 'Cause was there a 2-parter on that?
Will you vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act, including the mandate on pre-existing conditions?
So I would vote to repeal Obamacare as basically, or the Affordable Care Act, as I personally am paying $750 a month for insurance premiums. As far as the pre-existing condition, though, I would want to maintain that.
Yes or no for this as well. Will you commit to accepting the result of the 2024 presidential election once the courts have settled any legal challenges? Mr. Yu?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yes.
I would never commit to accepting election results that I haven't seen yet.
You're watching the debate with the candidates vying to represent Coloradans in the 4th Congressional District. We'll be right back. Welcome back to a CBS News Colorado special. Voters decide the primary debate with Republican candidates for Congressional District 4.
According to the Congressional Budget Office, the national debt is projected to be 118% of gross domestic product in just 7 years. In light of that, a couple yes or no questions here. Again, would you vote for an appropriations bill if it doesn't reduce spending, not just the rate of increase in spending? Did you hear that okay?
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
So would you vote for an appropriations bill, a budget bill, if it doesn't reduce spending? We're not just talking about reduce the rate of increase, which often happens, but actually reduce spending. Congresswoman Boebert.
I absolutely fight to have our appropriations bills reduce spending, but if the policy writers are right and we are not increasing spending, then there's a possibility of support there. But in every appropriations bills that I've fought to get passed individually through the House, I've worked to reduce the spending.
Thank you. Representative Holter.
Ma'am, these are tough questions to answer with a yes or no question. I think it might be unfair.
I'm trying to get so much into this.
I understand that, ma'am. The answer is we need a balanced budget and we need to reduce spending. And the only way you can curtail the growth in the deficit is by getting rid of all these pre-COVID funds. And we've got to quit giving all these programs out. So yeah, we have to stop the spending and try to change that trajectory.
Okay.
And that's one way to do it, ma'am.
Representative Lynch?
Yeah, I absolutely agree that we are just out of control in our spending at the federal level. So,
Ms. Flora?
Our debt right now is not only unsustainable, it's immoral to put on the backs of our children. And as a mom, I can't stand for that. And I would start, by the way, with single subject appropriation bills and then work very hard to reduce our spending.
Okay. Senator Sonnenberg?
I would not vote for any appropriation bill that did not have any corresponding reductions in the same amount.
Mr. Yu?
I would not approve that.
Would you support a constitutional balanced budget amendment, Mr. Yu?
I absolutely would support that. In fact, I think one of the biggest threats that we are not adhering to is the fact that we have a national that is getting out of control, and that is mortgaging the future of our children. And in fact, I think that anyone in Congress who can't pass a balanced budget should even take a salary.
Thank you. Senator Sonnenberg.
Oh, absolutely. Balanced budget would be much better than something we've had with continuing resolutions.
Ms. Flora?
I would 100% back a balanced budget amendment, and I would do the work to pass a budget which Congress hasn't done in 20 years. That would be a great place to start.
Representative Lynch?
yeah, absolutely. It'd be great to have a budget for once, but we've seen the benefits in Colorado of insisting on a balanced budget.
Representative Holter?
There hasn't been a balanced budget in, I don't know how many decades, and we absolutely need to balance the budget, but we need to do more than that, as you mentioned in the previous question. So yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Congresswoman?
I have introduced legislation for a balanced budget amendment to be added to our Constitution, but also in the appropriations process, we need to go through that programmatic spending line by line, get rid of the woke and weaponized and wasteful programs and positions that your tax dollars are funding.
Extending the 2017 tax cuts will cost approximately $2.5 trillion over the next 10 years. A show of hands. Who supports extending those tax cuts?
100%.
Okay. Congresswoman Boebert, the tax cuts will not expand the economy enough to offset the cost. So how would you pay for them?
One of the things that we need to do is get our energy production in order. We need to export our clean liquefied natural gas to our allies across the globe. This is our resource to produce and sell. And so that's one of the main things that we need to do. But also in Congress, that we are always looking for pay-fors for legislation and going through, again, that programmatic spending and see areas where you can pull money from. The Green New Deal spending, over $300 billion. That's a great place to start. The 87,000 IRS agents that cost $86 billion that were hired to spy on Americans. I mean, this is to go after and target Americans. This is another area that we can do. Even the student loan programs, there is so much that we can pull back. And when we increased the debt ceiling, there were many of those items that my colleagues and I listed out in the Limit, Save, Grow bill that passed the House initially.
Thank you. Ms. Flora, same question. How would you pay for the tax cuts?
Well, I think when we look back at what Ronald Reagan showed us when we entered one of those prosperous periods in our country's history, when you cut taxes, you unleash the ingenuity and the juggernaut of the American economy. What actually happens is suddenly those who actually create jobs, those who actually create wealth, business owners, they actually begin to make more money and the taxes increase. It's an inverse relationship. Congress does not have a tax problem, they have a spending problem. So we pull that in and we release the American economy. I do believe we will get our economy back on track. And I would also focus on unleashing our energy sector, because that is driving up inflation and it is hurting everyone, whether it's the price of fertilizer when you're out on the Eastern Plains in the ag industry, or whether it's someone that is working in a trucking industry, or even small business owners, wherever they are. So we can do both. We can cut the taxes, it will increase the wealth and the prosperity, and therefore it will be a net gain overall.
Thank you. Mr. Yu, politicians often talk about waste, fraud, and abuse. Can you name a specific federal program that benefits CD4 that you would consider eliminating to make up for the tax cuts?
So, first of all, when we're talking about the Trump tax cuts, and I apologize if I'm disagreeing with anything you're saying, Sean, but the Trump taxes have actually paid for themselves. According to the Congressional Budget Office, tax revenues have increased by 47% since the tax cuts have been in place. So for us to sit there to say to make up for it is a question mark to me, and why we actually are saying that we need to actually make up for the cuts. And that's why it would be devastating to repeal the Trump tax cuts and going forward. Now, the question you asked was regarding, I'm sorry.
A specific federal program
that I would consider cutting. Right now, I can't think of anything right now that I would consider cutting at this point without actually researching what affects our district.
Senator Sonnenberg, same question.
Absolutely. And quite honestly, I agree with Peter that those tax cuts and Deb will stimulate an economy. But we do need to reduce the size of government and reduce the waste of government. I'd eliminate the Department of Education. I'd start there. I'd eliminate probably half of the Environmental Protection Agency. I'd eliminate, well, quite frankly, I'd probably eliminate half of maybe most of all of the agencies, because quite frankly, we have a ballooned government where people are looking for things to justify their job. And those people need to go. I'd put a cap on hiring. We would have no more new hires. And as people retire, we would not replace them. I'd downsize the government.
Thank you. The defense budget is a substantial portion of discretionary spending. Raise your hand if you would consider cuts to defense.
Sure. Certain areas.
Raise your hand if you would increase defense spending.
Certainly, in certain areas.
Okay.
Absolutely, depending on the programs.
Right.
Let me ask you, Ms. Fleur, how would you pay for it?
Well, the first thing we would have to do is we would have to separate out the defense budget from discretionary spending. I do not think they should be linked. And when we're looking at an increasingly dangerous world, because of the weakness of the person we call the commander-in-chief, all we have to look at is after the debacle of Afghanistan, that is when Putin went into Russia. That's when China became more aggressive towards Taiwan. That's when we see the horrors of what happened on October 7th. We cannot be weak. I do not believe that is a lot more money. What I believe it is being efficient. And the other thing I would do for our military, by the way, is I would make sure that we get woke policies out of the military so that we can once again begin to grow our recruitment. There are many people that would love to serve. Our son's 19. He's of that age, and many of his friends would love to serve in our military. We're at record low recruitment because of the nonsense that has nothing to do with actually protecting our country. So I believe there's much that we can do to restore our place of safety on the national stage.
Thank you.
You're watching the debate with the candidates vying to represent Coloradans in the 4th Congressional District. We'll be right back. Welcome back to a CBS News Colorado special. Voters decide the primary debate with Republican candidates for Congressional District 4.
The latest Social Security and Medicare trustees reports say Social Security will be insolvent by 2035 and Medicare by 2036. The trustees say in order to keep the program solvent, either revenues need to be increased by an amount equal to a permanent payroll tax increase of 3.3%, or benefits need to be permanently reduced for all current and future beneficiaries by nearly 21%, or combination of the two. A show of hands first. Who supports a payroll tax increase? Who supports a reduction in benefits? Yes or no? Should investment income be taxed for Social Security? Congresswoman Boebert?
No.
No. No.
No, because it's already been taxed.
No.
No.
Should the retirement age be raised? Mr. Yu?
That's on a means.
You don't have to say how far it should be raised.
Okay.
Just should it be raised?
Considering the fact that our life expectancy is higher now, yes.
No.
I wouldn't cut anything for people who are currently receiving it, but we need to look at options going forward.
Okay.
Yeah, Americans are living longer nowadays, and so yes.
Perhaps, and I can explain later with more time.
Again, perhaps. We do need to look at this long term, but I would not cut Social Security and Medicare for those who are currently receiving.
What about means testing Social Security? So benefits are based on need or the amount of assets a person has.
There's a lot in this that we absolutely need to look into, and unfortunately this has been a scary topic that no one's allowed to touch, because as soon as you start looking down the road at how we are actually going to solve this problem, this is a major issue. This is a big portion of our debt, but then we have other folks on the other side of the aisle who accuse you of wanting to kill grandmas while we're trying to actually get our fiscal house in order.
Yeah, let me tear into this means testing. That's a Democrat policy.
Okay.
First of all, but we can outgrow it. If we put America first and we unleash the economic engine, ladies and gentlemen of Colorado, we can grow our economy, we can grow our production, we can grow our revenue. And you know what? There is a method, if I had about 30 minutes to explain it, where I can show the growth and how we can outgrow this problem.
The next question you can answer longer, but for this one, means testing?
Means testing. You know, here's what's wrong with our government is we don't have people that have ran businesses and actually done this sort of stuff. And so means testing is part of a potential solution. So yeah, it could be part of the bigger solution.
Means testing?
I'd have to look deeper into that, but it's not my first choice.
Senator Sonnenberg?
No, those people paid through Social Security taxes their entire life.
Mr. Yu?
I am never in favor of something that you pay into that you can't get back. However, if somebody wants to volunteer their sacrifice, they're more than welcome to.
So let me ask you this, Representative Holtor, if I told you you could answer this one longer.
Finally,
so
I get a question that lets me speak.
What is your plan to maintain Social Security and Medicare solvency without raising the debt?
Well, first of all, if we unleash the economy, if we get more people to work, if we have an America First policy under Donald Trump's plans, okay, we're going to bring more revenue, tax revenue, into the federal government. And that's going to also, with more people working, oh, by the way, we have to stop these pre-COVID and COVID-era benefits. Okay, that's killing the budget. Colorado, you need to understand that. And we need to get people back to work. We need to incentivize people to work instead of staying at home and waiting for a benefit that the Democrats, like President Joe Biden, is giving, like free education when he writes off billions of dollars worth of education loans that the federal government can't get back. And we're talking about not having enough money at the federal government. These are problematic policies. 15 seconds. I'll try to use every bit of it. Thank you, sir. We need to look at growing our economy using reductions in regulation in key areas, okay, that allow us to prosper. Also, I have a little different philosophy on this immigration issue, and now I have to stop. So I'm going to stop out of courtesy to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Representative Lynch, same question. You know, your plan to keep Social Security and Medicare solvent.
Yeah. You know, we see this even in Colorado where, you know, government just has a real bad spending problem. We love at the state capitol to spend your money. And we see them doing that every single day here in Colorado. So what's going to have to happen is a priority shift in our federal government. And folks are going to have to be good leaders that we put into position that can actually be part of the conversation that convinces our government to spend less money, and they can then reallocate that towards.
Mr. Yu?
We don't like.
Can you actually repeat the question one more time?
How do you keep Social Security and Medicare solvent without raising the debt?
So this is where we need to start thinking outside the box, because as you said, by 2035, things become insolvent. And no matter what, regardless if we don't do anything at all, 20% of your benefit will be reduced. And so we need to start thinking about things that would work and what is an option, such as basically doing a private investment, like basically George Bush requested back in 2005. People said to say it's a risk. We're not talking about investing the entire Social Security account. We're talking about a small percentage. Think about where the stock market was back in 2005. It was at 17,000. Today, we're knocking on 40. We would have had more than enough money to completely fund Social Security if we were doing that. And if we would start now, we would still have a chance to fund 70% of any upcoming obligations. Sweden is doing it right now. Why can't we do it? It doesn't make any sense why we would actually take steps back and not look at every option, considering that there is now, instead of like the old days where you had 5 people paying in for 1 person coming out, now it's pretty much even one-on-one. It's going to actually get upside down here very soon.
Ms. Flora?
When we look at where we need to cut, and I know that is a question about Social Security, I would not start there. We have a huge issue right now with omnibus spending bills that are 1,000 pages, over $1 trillion, that people have less than 24 hours to read. And I've got to be very honest, Republicans have put just as much pork into those bills as Democrats have. We've got to reform right there, because right now we are overspending in so many areas, and before we abandon anyone who's been paying into a system, which we should not do, we need to look at the other areas that we can cut. For instance, when we look at the infrastructure bill, only a tiny percent was for infrastructure, and the vast majority of the rest of it were for pet projects like EV mandates. The COVID bill was 1,000 pages. In the center was something called family planning for Burma. Until people in Congress are held accountable for what they're spending, we should never talk about cutting programs like Social Security and Medicaid.
Senator Sonnenberg, did you have anything to add here? How do you keep Medicare and Social Security
I think you get the government out of the way of business, so business can hire more people and get to that factor where you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people putting in to pay for the one retiree. If government would get out of the way and allow employers to employ more people to do more work and stimulate the economy, you don't have the issue that you have in 3034 or 2034.
Yes, so for nearly 4 years now, I have fought for our senior citizens in Colorado, ensuring that they are receiving the benefits that they deserve, that they have paid into, and to get through that bureaucracy and through the red tape. And honestly, it shouldn't take a phone call to your congressman's office to get that. So the system is absolutely broken, but I see what is spent in Washington, D.C. And bills that were mentioned, I have advocated against them, fought against Nancy Pelosi's con game of titling a bill one thing and then doing something completely different, loading it with all of this junk that has nothing to do with it. 9% of the American Rescue Plan actually going to anything COVID health related, all of the spending that is going on, $340 billion for the Green New Deal agenda. The federal government does not have a revenue problem, has a spending problem, and that is what I fight against each and every day to ensure that we are good stewards of the tax dollars that are coming in.
You're watching The Debate with the candidates vying to represent Coloradans in the 4th Congressional District. We'll be right back. Welcome back to a CBS News Colorado special. Voters decide the primary debate with Republican candidates for Congressional District 4.
A show of hands for these next few questions. Do you support the U.S. deploying troops to Taiwan if it were attacked by China?
Right here. Let's go. It's our ally. We got to stand behind our allies. 100%.
Okay. How many of you support aid for Ukraine?
Right here.
If it's accountable.
Wow.
What about aid for Israel?
100%.
If it's
our
paid for.
ally.
So,
The only ally
Congressman
we have in the
Boebert,
Middle
why
East, ma'am.
support Israel but not Ukraine?
Ask
Israel
Go
is,
ahead. I'm sorry.
that was for me, correct? Israel is our #1 ally, and we have made commitments to them. Ukraine is not a NATO ally, and we have already sent them over nearly $200 billion of your tax dollars. There have been no audits. We do not know where this money is going for. It's completely unaccountable, and we continue to send more money there. I would absolutely support helping Israel replenish their supply with the Iron Dome and protecting them, but I will not support legislation that also ties $9 billion to Hamas while sending money to our allies, Israel. And that's exactly what we were stuck with in the House of Representatives a few weeks ago. And also, this needs to be paid for. We talked a lot about pay-fors here on this stage tonight, and we cannot continue the deficit spending and borrow billions of dollars from China and have that debt be on our children and our children's children's backs. This is unjust and immoral, and it has to be stopped.
Should there be any conditions to the aid, Ms. Flora?
I'd like to address this definitely. First of all, when it comes to Ukraine, there needs to be accountability, and I'm always more of a proponent of equipment and armament, not cash dollars. However, I do have to address the Israel situation. My husband and I saw a private screening of the unedited Hamas body cam footage. Hardest thing I've ever watched, but I needed to watch it so we can understand that we're facing a battle between barbarism and civilization, and if we do not support our key ally, that fight will be coming here. However, I do have to bring up that Congresswoman Boebert voted not once, but twice against that aid. And the Republican Jewish Coalition called her by name and said that any Republican who did not vote for this last aid to Israel, which was the last opportunity to support our key ally, should not even call themselves pro-Israel. There was money in there for humanitarian aid, but everyone I've spoken to, from IDF captains to AIPAC, have said we cannot have the good be the opponent of the perfect or the perfect of the good. It was a good bill. Israel wanted it, and the RJC has said anyone who did not support it, like Lauren Boebert, is not pro-Israel.
Thank you. Congresswoman Boebert, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
So I spent days, long nights trying to get this legislation right. There was nearly $100 billion in foreign aid that was deficit spending, unpaid for. And I absolutely voted against sending $9 billion to Hamas. I have seen the videos as well. I've been in classified briefings. I know how horrible that war is. And I'm not going to fund both sides. And it is disgusting that I would have a Republican opponent who would want to send $9 billion to Hamas. I stand with Israel, and I also stand with America, and I'm not going to further indebt us to China.
Thank you. The Republican Jewish Coalition has said any Republican who did not vote for that last-ditch effort, it was a last opportunity to fund our key ally that was the victim of some of the most barbaric attacks that we have ever seen on October 7th. They asked for those funds. They are actually in Israel working with humanitarian aid. Do they believe it could have been better? 100%. But the worst part of all of that is one of the only reasons why Iran is not fully attacking Israel right now, yes, because of their military prowess, because we've been providing them with weaponry, but because they believe that America has their back, and that has been undermined by the Republicans who did not vote for that bill.
Representative Holtorf, I asked this question earlier. Should there be conditions to the aid that we're giving?
The answer is yes, and let's talk about this. I think I might be the only person that's deployed to the Middle East. I think I'm the only person that maybe has been in the Middle East, perhaps has served in combat in the Middle East and understands how difficult and tenuous the Middle East is. So we absolutely need to have conditions. With respect to Ukraine, ma'am, it should be a lend-lease arrangement, and Ukraine should, when they win the proxy war that we're fighting against Russia, they have the capacity, if their economy recovers, and it will, to pay all the money back that we give them over time. It might be 10 years, it might be more than that. But with respect to Israel, I ran a pro-Israel resolution in the State House during the special session. I also ran the pro-Israel resolution during the main session. And you know what? There wasn't a Democrat that would support that. Ron Weinberg and I were the two prime sponsors, and we couldn't get a Democrat on that bill. What's wrong with the Democrats? We had 5 Jewish Democrats, Colorado, in the State House that would not support Israel. So don't beat each other up here. We got Democrats that won't even do it. So let's knock the fighting off. The cat fight needs to stop, and we need to start talking about policy issues. Here we go.
You're watching the debate with the candidates vying to represent Coloradans in the 4th Congressional District. We'll be right back. Welcome back to a CBS News Colorado special. Voters decide the primary debate with Republican candidates for Congressional District 4.
It is time for closing remarks. Congresswoman Boebert, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. It's been an honor to be here tonight. And as I stated in the beginning, this is a time to unify. We are in a primary election, but the Republican Party is the party with the right policies. I have a proven track record, a proven voting record, one that I am proud of. No one has to question where I stand. I campaign as I govern, and I do what I say I'm going to do. The promises that I make at home are promises I work to deliver on in Washington, D.C. I have represented over 30 counties in Colorado, and I'm looking to earn the vote of voters in 21 other counties here in Colorado in CD4. It has been wonderful to go through every single county and meet new people and build this coalition, because we have the right message, we have the right answers and the right policies. I have earned the trust of voters in the Republican Party to put me at the top line on the ballot because I showed up, I honored my commitments to them when I looked them in the eye and I said that I would be there, and I will continue to fight for you. This is choose your fighter time, and I will fight for you, Colorado, as I always have, delivering results all along the way.
Thank you. Representative Holter.
Well, thank you for this great evening, and thank you for letting us speak to Colorado tonight. I will tell you that there's several things you need to know about me, Colorado, and why I am the best candidate, the most qualified candidate, and you should send me to Washington, D.C. Congresswoman Boebert said it. You want a warrior to go to Washington, D.C., someone has tempered in the battlefields of Afghanistan, who has never wavered and has a warrior ethos of mission first, never accept defeat, never leave a fallen comrade. I've lived that in more than one combat theater, one theater, but more than one combat operation. I also want you to know that there's nobody tougher. There's nobody on this stage tougher. There's nobody more pugnacious. There's nobody that's going to fight for you more, Eastern Colorado, than Representative Richard Holtorf. I'm the second name on that ballot. And I'm asking you, Colorado, to make the best choice for a person that will be one of the best congressmen you've ever seen. And that is Richard Holtorf for Congress. HoltorfforColorado.com. Thank you. Representative Lynch.
Thank you, Sean, and it's good to see you outside of the Capitol. We're finally free from that. Colorado, we've got an important decision to make here, and not one that should be taken lightly. This is not time for us to be sending somebody who's never passed a bill, or somebody who's never been elected, or somebody who, quite frankly, never ran a business or never been a veteran, honestly. Now is a serious time in our country, and CD4 has gone through a transition that requires a transition of leadership. Now is the time to send folks that know what they're doing, who actually know the issues of Colorado. And you can't just say that you know the issues and promote the issues unless you know the arguments against them. The last 4 years, I've been fighting the battles at the state capitol. I know the issues, and I know the battles that we have to fight here in Colorado, and I'm ready to take that fight to Washington, D.C. LynchForColorado.com. It's Mike Lynch, LynchForColorado.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Flora.
Thank you. As I've traveled all over CD4 listening to voters, they want real solutions to address our open border, our crippling debt, our rising inflation. They understand that our nation is facing serious issues that require serious, principled representatives that will focus on solutions, not self. I understand the urgency of what we are facing. That's why I've been fighting alongside my neighbors here in CD4 for years. I've stood from the school board to the State House. Now I'm ready to stand for you in Congress because I understand that that is where the battle is. Not chasing a media circus, but doing the work of the people on the House floor. You see, I am running for a seat, not running from a seat, because I want to serve you. I want to fight for our future, for our children and our grandchildren. I'm the conservative fighter that you can be proud of, and I'm asking for your vote. Go to DeborahFlora.com. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Sean, and it's a pleasure to be here today, and thank you for those that are watching that wanted to become more educated. I am Jerry Sonnenberg. I'm your conservative, proven leader that served in the legislature, that fought on your behalf, both in the majority and the minority. I served as vice chair of state affairs when we tried to stop the liberal agenda. I served as chair of the Ag and Natural Resources Committee as I worked on water, as I defended oil and gas, as I worked on all those issues that are important to agriculture. I fought for tax cuts. And when the legislature killed my tax cut bills, I teamed up with the Independence Institute to put them on the ballot. In 2020, 2022, you passed my ballot initiatives to reduce your income tax. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a pleasure to serve you. I'm proud of my legislative record. You'll be proud of me as your congressman. SonnenbergForCongress.com, and I humbly ask for your vote.
Thank you. Mr. Yu.
So I just want to say what an honor it was to be here tonight and to be able to have all of you here tonight. I think it's pretty simple in this election what we have. You have the option to continue to do what we've been doing over and over and over again. There's a reason why we have a 15% approval rate in Congress, because we send people to Congress who run around chasing endorsements, looking for their photo ops, their voice, their talking points. What we don't have is we don't have people who actually have the ability to make things change. I don't care if you go to DC or you go anywhere and you make a vote on a bill and it gets shot down, or you vote against something and it still gets passed. To me, you're just a vote taker. We don't need someone to be a seat filler at this point in time. We need someone who has the ability to actually make real change. Now, as someone who's had success in every single business industry I've worked in, it's more than just understanding the industry. It's about being able to implement it, to be able to go in there and have the respect of your peers, to be able to get things done, to be able to make those changes, to be able to serve you. And that's who I am. I'm talking to every single constituent. And that couple that I talked about in my intro, guess what? They said they're voting for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here, joining me here in Lone Tree for this very important debate. I appreciate you fielding all the questions, your patience, and thoughtful answers. And thank you all for joining us for this CBS News Colorado Voters Decide special. You can watch the full debate anytime on cbscolorado.com and highlights on our YouTube channel. The primary election is June 25th. Ballots hit the mail next week.